All right. We could take our seats. I want to thank everybody for coming to our celebration and open house. As many of you know, we've been talking about how better to describe ourselves with the breadth of expertise, experience, and research and education that we've been doing. And so today is the culmination of that, and we thought that it would be a good idea to get together and be able to see, hear a little bit about the history of the department, and also see all the wonderful things that we're doing, which is the poster session and reception outside. But I'm very pleased that Dean Davis was able to spare a few minutes to come and give us a couple of opening remarks. So without any further ado, Dean Davis.
Well, I'm delighted to be here to welcome you to the name change ceremony and open house for the new Department of Population and Quantitative Health Sciences. Thank you for coming. This event ushers in a new, exciting era for an outstanding department and its world-class faculty members, students, and postdocs. Now, the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics has had a long history of growth and change, and the new name is its latest high point in that storied record. The name change really captures the dynamic scope of the department, giving substance and structure to the work of a talented, multidisciplinary group of researchers dedicated to solving quantitative problems in human health. Now, in addition to the previous emphasis on epidemiology and biostatistics, the last few years have seen major new interests arise within the department, such as bioinformatics and computational biology, genetics, health outcomes research, community health, and public health. The new name reflects this ever-evolving mission and the newly extended breadth and more cross-disciplinary collaboration than ever. The added clarity brought about by the new name also helps department members better serve other CWRU faculty members who may wish to use its services and collaborate. So congratulations to Jonathan Haynes, the chair, and the department's nearly 36 primary faculty members on their success in effecting this change. For those of you who may not know much about the department, let me provide just a brief overview. Its faculty members conduct research across a wide variety of areas, integrating approaches to public and community health, biostatistics, epidemiology, and computational biology to address critical problems affecting human health. In addition to the original research, the department partners with faculty members from across the School of Medicine, clinicians from our hospital affiliates, and colleagues worldwide on vital research, helping design investigative efforts in analyzing data. So there are some fascinating content areas going on here. So what about the phenotypic legacy of admixture between modern humans and Neanderthals? Sort of cool. Genetic resistance to tuberculosis in highly susceptible individuals. The role of genetics in corneal dystrophy with glaucoma. Predicting drug permeability to the blood-brain barrier from clinical phenotypes. Identifying combinations of chronic and functional conditions and geriatric syndromes that predict poor health outcomes. And developing an integrated database and analysis platform for epilepsy self-management. So you can see the breadth and the depth of the activities in this department. And they all sound fascinating, and in many ways I wish I was joining the 6 new students that are coming in the summer to learn all of these things. Now, all of these studies and so much more that's carried out in the department have at least one major theme in common. They transform data into information via analysis, leading to new knowledge and eventually to fresh wisdom. This work operates on many stages: the cellular level, the individual level, the family level, the population level, as the saying goes, from cell to society. So I'm pleased to tell you that the department supports and partners with virtually every department in the School of Medicine and other schools within the university, including nursing, dental medicine, business, and the Mendel School of Applied Social Sciences. So you guys really get around. So let me close by thanking you all for coming. And I know you join me in congratulating the members of the department on their new identity and wish them well in their future activities. And maybe today you'll hear about something that you'd like to associate with that's going on in this department. Thank you very much and have a great symposium.
Well, you've heard a little bit about what we're doing and what we've done, but I thought that I would start off and give you just a bit more history about the department. And for those of you who have been here for less than 30 years, you may not realize that changing the name of the department is actually something that happens quite frequently. So we're gonna take a little tour of the history of the department. And the name changes, and we're going to go back to 1885, okay? And the very first version of this department was hygiene and state medicine. And I've also included some interesting events that happened in 1885, not necessarily related specifically to the department, but to something that the department was interested in. And in 1885, one of the first population maps of disease, and in this particular case it was poverty, was done. So a poverty map of London was published. Then in 1894, the name changes, and it's hygiene and preventive medicine. And you will note as we go through this, preventive medicine shows up, disappears, shows up, disappears. It's a very interesting thing. But that's actually 1894 was when the standard deviation was first described. So for those of you who aren't in statistics and biostatistics all the time, you have to realize that this is actually a fairly young science. 1898, so we're 4 years later, and hygiene and preventive medicine don't like each other anymore, so they separated out into two separate departments. And this was actually one of the first demonstrations of a practical application of the Poisson distribution. So again, it's biostatistics and statistics being fairly young. Well, now they had a separation and they decided to get back together in 1901, hygiene and preventive medicine. And this is about the time of the rediscovery of Mendel's laws of heredity. So then we another 5 years, and then hygiene sort of disappears, and preventive medicine decides that pathology is more interesting. So pathology and preventive medicine, and this is actually the year that the term genetics was actually coined, and also one of the first demonstrations of the use of random sampling techniques to try to get a better idea and reduce bias in population kinds of studies. 3 years later, pathology decides it wants to go off on its own, and hygiene comes back with bacteriology now. And the student's t-test was actually published. And for those of you who don't know, you should go drink a stein or a mug of Guinness, because that's where it was developed. Then we go to 1914, so we're actually moving a little bit. Hygiene and bacteriology had decided to get together, and they threw out pathology. And that's the year that the American Genetics Association was founded. So we jump. So this is one of the longest periods without a name change. But in 1946, and this really sort of starts the modern era of the department, I would say, where we're back to preventive medicine. It's just the Department of Preventive Medicine now. It's also the year that the CDC was established, the year that fluoridation in water was done at a community level, and the first digital computer was built and used, the first general purpose non-military computer. computer was developed. Then we go to 1963, and preventive medicine is still there, but there is now a division of biometry, so a recognition of the value and the importance of statistical and quantitative analysis. It was also the year that the measles vaccine was licensed and the word clone was coined. So then we have a bunch of activity going on. So 4 years later, biometry decides to split off and become its own department. So we now have preventive medicine and biometry, and that's the year that Medicare was actually initiated. So for those of you who are doing a lot of outcomes research, that's when that data starts to get collected. In 1970, so only 3 years later, community health becomes a department, biometry stays a department, and this is the point at which the cigarette advertising ban was introduced and the EPA was created. So we're starting to get some of the environmental and some more general health things going on. So then we jump another 13 years, and epidemiology and community health, so they've gotten together now. Biometry is still a department, and the first AIDS public health intervention was started about that time. So, and then we jump to 1984, so just a year later, when the Department of Environmental Health Sciences was created. And this is actually the year of the first general use of a graphical user interface. So if anyone remembers the Macintosh, it was the first time that was publicly and generally available. And then we get to 1987, finally, where epidemiology and community health becomes epidemiology and biostatistics, and environmental health sciences is still there. And this is the year that the scripting language Perl was introduced, and it was also the year that chronic granulomatous disease, the gene for that, was actually cloned. Now that's the first gene that was cloned using modern DNA positional cloning techniques. And the main reason I put it there is because 2 months before that paper came out, I was on a paper that localized that gene on the X chromosome. So, it was one of my early activities. So that's 1987, and that was 30 years ago, and we've been epidemiology and biostatistics ever since. Now, we absorbed environmental health sciences a few months ago, and along with that, and along with the other things that you heard from the dean, we decided that there were just far too many things going on to really be part of just epidemiology and biostatistics. So we have all of these other activities ongoing. So it seemed appropriate for us to change our name and try to capture all of this. And that's where we come up with population and quantitative health sciences. And we are expecting to continue to do great and wonderful things, okay? Now, how are we going to do that? We're going to do that with all of the faculty, the primary faculty of the department. You can see we've got quite a few of them. They're all smiling. And they are doing some absolutely fantastic things. And what we're going to hear about next are some of the educational things and some of the research activities that the department has ongoing. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mendel Singer, who is our Vice Chair for Education, and he'll talk a little bit about some of the educational activities that we have ongoing in the department. Mendel.
So a lot of people don't know that the dean was here before. She did not mention that there is a new policy of conservation of syllables, and that the name change is in fact syllable neutral. It sounds like a big mouthful, but if you work it out, epidemiology is 7 syllables all by itself. So we've actually maintained parity. Okay, so we've got the population and the quantitative health sciences, and it all comes together in the doctoral program. So the doctoral program we have approved on the books, right, is epidemiology and biostatistics. Well, things grow and change over time and so forth, and the program is embracing the full heterogeneity in our department, and the fact that all these areas are getting to know each other better because science is moving, as I often tell students, that science has moved from being discipline-centric to being problem-centric, that where things are being driven by solving complex problems more than you do what you do because this is your discipline. And that ends up bringing not only different groups of people together to the table, but we end up all growing in individual ways. And as we interact more with people from these different areas, one of the things they find most interesting is that every discipline would have its own way of thinking and conceptualizing about problems. And when you get exposed to more of it, it changes how you do everything. And that's where the program is moving and what we're going to be doing in our doctoral program, including with the integrative thinking sequence that Dr. Williams, the PhD program director, will be leading, but we'll have participation from all of our faculty. But then at the master's level, right, we still got all these different areas, and there's still a need for people who have good skills for solving, for working out the problems. And so the master's level training is still extremely important. And we have from the different areas. So, our MPH program, has certainly been a flagship program in our department for since 1999, which has about 100 students. There's a new undergraduate minor in public health. So I'm just kind of working left to right, which is a little bit, conceding something, because I like to work right to left also. So the undergraduate minor in public health is new. It's being approved by the Board of Trustees in a couple of weeks, but it started. So Scott Frank taught the Intro to Public Health this past semester, and Kathy Stein will be teaching the Intro to Epidemiology in the fall. So that will be coming on board. We have started exploring, Daniel Tisch leading the effort to see about a master's in global health epidemiology in collaboration with the Center for Global Health and Disease, which will be fit in nicely with the other things that were going on with the global health track and the MPH program, and building up our epidemiology courses and trying to in our department. So we'll see, if that goes well. Hopefully that will be on board for next fall. And then we have approval for graduate certificate in public health, and we're looking to see, what's the best way to implement that. But one of them would be geared towards public health employees, but largely for medical resident fellows, and will be one, and another clinicians, and eventually may very well expand to hit a much broader audience when we are in a position to have the resources to support that. On the quantitative, purely on the quantitative side, and I say that because we've got, and even that's not fair, because everybody ends up doing other things, right? So all of our, our master's degree students, we have a lot of quantitative work for lots of our master's students, and they're crossing over there. And similarly, our biostatistics master's students, they're taking a class in epidemiology. If they're doing healthcare analytics track, they're taking a course in large healthcare databases. If they're doing the genomics and bioinformatics track, they're taking courses in genome sequencing and bioinformatics, right? And so we do have some cross-fertilization going on within the master's programs as well. So these are our students. So I was able to get a good picture at the last gathering. So we have about 150 students total, graduate students in our department. And then the quick rundown is this: the Master of Public Health program is a 2-year full-time program, but we have lots and lots of dual degree programs with professional schools and other programs, and the IGS program. And we have 5 concentrations, so it already represents a very broad area. And Dr. Frank is our director, and he is also the founder of the program. So he's been, which is back to 1999. Some of us remember that very well. In biostatistics, I'm sort of the administrative director, I look at it as. There's 31 credits, and it can be done 1 year intensively, or longer if you're doing it just a regular full-time schedule or as a part-time student. We have a BSMS program that's been successful, and we have 4 tracks. And as a master's degree program, we're gearing it also make sure that people are geared towards jobs that are out there, because it's still good to know that students who finish a master's degree have some kind of a job market to go to. And so we have tracks oriented towards the different ones, including a new one in social and behavioral science, headed by Aaron Connell from a psychological sciences department. And the PhD program, Scott Williams, our director, and that is really where we're trying to bring the transdisciplinary approach that we do also in research in our whole department. And as we're growing more and more in that direction, that brings it into the program. And lots of specializations. I can't list all the specializations that are possible conveniently on this slide. We got a sense of it from Jonathan's presentation before when he showed all these different areas. These are some of the different areas that covers a fair percentage of the department. But all those specializations, they're all also going to be represented in the integrative thinking and the idea that taking the approaches of all these different areas and how we think about problems, how we learn from each other, and how we can grow as individual researchers to be better researchers in the future. Thank you. Oh, I should have introduced her. And now, Dr. Sudhir Agar, the Vice Chair for Research.
Thanks, everyone. So Jonathan told you a lot about the name changes that we had with the department. So I thought I'd set the stage for the name change of the department by telling you a little bit about the legacy of innovation and research that we've had within the department. So let's start at the beginning. So the history of the department actually kind of reflects the peopling of Cleveland, because, in 1800, there were maybe 3 people. There was a survey done, and there were 3 men living in Cleveland at the time. By 1850, there were about 40,000. So there were a lot of immigrants that came in, and with the immigrants, unfortunately, came infectious disease. So there was a cholera epidemic that started in Cleveland and then spread from Cleveland out to Cincinnati and other places in Ohio. And at the time, there was the start of hospital systems that came into play. So these infirmaries, or asylums as they were called, were really hospital systems that were established. So St. Vincent's Charity Hospital, the Lakewood Hospital, so on and so forth. And during this time, CASE was also growing as an institution, right? This is prior to the merger of the Western Reserve and the CASE Institute of Technology. And what these hospitals did was they provided care to the poor, the aged, the mentally ill, patients. So you have to realize that public health in Cleveland has been a rich legacy of providing care to individuals who are disadvantaged. So disparities work is fairly old within the Cleveland area. And so this legacy continues to today. And then I'm going to fast forward a little bit. As Jonathan told you, it was the recruitment of John Dingle in 1946 to CASE. So he was recruited by the then dean of the School of Medicine, Dr. Warren. And he created a legacy of team science that also continues to today. So we had the establishment of the Department of Preventive Medicine. And Dingle recruited with him George Badger, who was a biostatistician. He also brought Feller, who was a virologist, and Rammelkamp. So those of you who were located with us at Metro Health Medical Center, you know about the Rammelkamp building. And Rammelkamp was an internist. And so these guys worked as a team to try and solve the more important infectious diseases of those days. And they also started a 10-year landmark family study program on infectious diseases. So you have to recognize that this legacy still continues to today, right? You have folks here who do family studies, and you have folks here who do infectious disease. And so we have a deep and rich legacy harking back to the 1940s. So the focus that they had at the time was on common illnesses in families and the population at large. Okay. In the 60s, you had the advent of computational methods, because this is the time when nutrition came into play. So around the time of the First World War, nutrition and diet became very important, because the women who were left behind at home were trying to figure out how to get good food to the soldiers who were there in the First World War. So this actually started off as a Cleveland initiative, and eventually you ended up with a large database. So the history of databases too is pretty far back within the department, because you had the Highland View Hospital, Case Western Reserve University nutrient database that was developed in the early 1960s. And this was to study the diets of chronically ill people who were living at home. So basically, they created the first computational version of it. Okay. So building on all those blocks, you can see that global health, clinical epidemiology are old areas. Biostatistics also came about in the 1940s. Computational biology, 1960s. It's genetic and genomic epidemiology and bioinformatics and medical informatics, as well as big data, that are the newcomers to the field. So basically, these came about, starting in about 1990, when Dr. Robert Elston was recruited by the then chair of the department, Dr. Rim, to start the genetic epidemiology program. And then in addition to that, bioinformatics, or rather medical informatics, was actually separate. It was part of the Center for Clinical Investigation. So today, we're integrating new pieces into the department. And so hopefully the new name that we have reflects the broad breadth of what you can see that we do in terms of research. So we study infectious and chronic disease. We look at study exposures across the lifespan. We have innovations in quantitative and qualitative methods. And many of us have laboratories of various kinds. We have molecular laboratories, we have statistical laboratories, we have simulation laboratories, we have computational laboratories, and we have community laboratories. And then of course with big data, some of the laboratories that you have is the data is virtual, and so you can acquire this data and be able to say something about the health of the population. Let's talk about our faculty. We have 35 primary faculty, over 75 secondary and adjunct faculty. Of the primary faculty, 3 are instructors, 8 are assistant professors, but hopefully many are getting promotions soon. We have 14 associate professors and 10 professors. We have about 10 publications on average. 55 submitted grants last year. We altogether, NIH, CDC, et cetera, grant funding is over $9.5 million. And last year, we had 74 invited publications. And as you can see, we have a pretty far reach from the department. The dean told you a little bit about the various areas that we work within the university. But this map actually shows you that our faculty work not just within the university, but really across the country and internationally. Okay, so the last piece is just a little bit on the mergers that we've had. So over the last 3 years, we've had 2 mergers that were finalized in the last year, which was the merger with the Department of Environmental Health Sciences and the merger with the Center for Clinical Investigation. As you know, those two mergers have brought to us a bigger breadth of the areas of science that we can work on. And lastly, this has led to the creation of a unified data science core. So I told you a lot about the laboratories that many of us have, but the most important part of what we do is really these data science cores, which are really collaboratories. And in terms of my final thoughts, I read to you Clarke's second law. This is from Arthur C. Clarke. The only way of discovering the limits of what is possible is to venture a little past them into the impossible. So I hope that's where we'll go.
So I want to thank Mendel and Sudha for giving you a little bit more detail about some of the things that we've been doing and that we plan to do. The rest of the afternoon, from now until 5 o'clock, we invite you to go outside into the lobby. We have refreshments. Some of you already found those. We have food, both food and liquid refreshment. We also have posters set up for that give a bit more idea of what the individual faculty in some of the programs are doing. We actually have a rotation for the faculty to stand by their posters, so there's a group that's supposed to be there right now, and every half an hour a different group will be standing by their posters. We invite you and the other faculty to view the posters, have conversation, enjoy yourselves there, and we thank you all for coming, and please enjoy everything that's outside in the lobby. Thank you very much.